When my grandson asked who I was, my daughter replied, "That's Mommy's nanny. She used to take care of me when I was a kid." Hours later, my lawyer handed her the deed to the house they live in. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. I've spent my entire life believing that a mother's love was unbreakable, that no matter what happened, the bond between a mother and her child would withstand anything. I was wrong. My name is Janice Miller. I'm 68 years old, and yesterday, my own daughter erased me from her life with just 11 words. I'd driven across town to visit Skylar and her family, excited to see my 6-year-old grandson Charlie. It had been 3 weeks since my last visit, too long for a grandmother's heart. I brought his favorite chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the oven, wrapped in the Star Wars paper he loves. The moment Charlie opened the door, his face lit up at the sight of the cookies, but there was confusion in his eyes. "Mom," he called over his shoulder. "The lady with the cookies is here again." The lady. Not Grandma. Not even Miss Janice. Just the lady. Skylar appeared behind him, her expression tightening when she saw me. "Charlie, take the cookies to the kitchen, please." He grabbed the package but lingered, looking up at me with curious eyes. "Who is she, Mommy? She comes over sometimes, but I don't remember her name." My heart stopped. Charlie had called me Grandma since he could speak. We'd baked cookies together, read stories, built blanket forts in my living room. How could he not remember me? Skylar placed her hands on Charlie's shoulders, her wedding ring catching the light. "This is the woman who was my babysitter when I was little," she said, her voice calm and measured. "She took care of me when I was a child." The babysitter. Not her mother. Not Charlie's grandmother. Just the babysitter. I stood frozen on the doorstep, the world tilting beneath my feet. My own daughter had just denied my existence, had erased 38 years of motherhood with a single sentence. "Skylar," I whispered, but she avoided my eyes. "Charlie, go put those cookies away," she repeated, nudging him toward the kitchen. When he was gone, she stepped onto the porch, pulling the door nearly closed behind her. "Why are you here, Mom? I told you to call before coming over." Her words barely registered. "Why would you tell him I'm your babysitter?" "Skylar, I'm his grandmother." She crossed her arms, glancing nervously at the large house next door. "It's complicated, Mom. Travis and I are trying to establish ourselves in this neighborhood. His colleagues live all around us. The Homeowners Association president is our neighbor. What does that have to do with me being your mother?" She lowered her voice. "Look at you, Mom. Look at your car." She gestured to my 15-year-old Honda, parked at the curb. "This isn't the image we're trying to project." The image. That's what I was now, an inconvenient image problem. I thought about the nights I'd spent rocking Skylar when she had ear infections, the double shifts I'd worked after her father died when she was just 10, leaving us with nothing but a mountain of medical debt. The way I'd sat up helping her with college applications, so proud when she got that scholarship. "I raised you," I said, my voice trembling. "I gave you everything I had. And I appreciate that," she said quickly, with the same dismissive tone she used with service staff. "But this is my life now. Travis's family has a certain standing, and they're already uncomfortable with my background." "Your background?" I repeated. "You mean me?" She checked her watch. "I need to get Charlie ready for his piano lesson. We can talk about this another time." Before I could respond, the door closed in my face. Through the decorative glass panels, I watched as she walked away, disappearing into the house I had helped her buy. The drive home passed in a blur. Memories flooded back, Skylar's first steps, her high school graduation, the day she married Travis, so handsome in his expensive suit, his family sitting stiffly on the groom's side, barely acknowledging me. I'd noticed Skylar pulling away over the years. Visits becoming less frequent, calls shorter. She'd stopped bringing Travis to my modest 2-bedroom apartment. But I never imagined she'd deny I was her mother. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the wall covered with photos of Skylar through the years. In every milestone of her life, I'd been there. Now I was just the babysitter. My phone rang. It was Michael, my attorney and the son of my oldest friend. He'd been handling my will and other legal matters since his father retired. "Janice, I have those documents you asked about," he said. "About the house." The house. The beautiful colonial that Skylar and Travis lived in. The house that I had bought for them as a wedding present, using every penny of my retirement savings and the life insurance from Skylar's father. The house that Skylar told everyone they had purchased themselves. Bring them tomorrow, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I think it's time for some changes. As I hung up, I looked at the photo of Skylar on her wedding day. Her smile bright, her future ahead of her. I had given her everything, my youth, my savings, my love. And in return she had erased me. Tomorrow she would learn that some things can't be erased so easily. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Charlie's confused face. Who is she, Mommy? How could my own grandson not know me? Skylar must have been working on erasing me from his life for months. By dawn, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, looking through an old leather-bound photo album. There was Skylar at 2, covered in birthday cake. Skylar at 8, missing her front teeth. Skylar at 10, standing beside her father's grave, her small hand clutching mine so tightly it left marks. Robert's death had changed everything. One moment he was complaining about heartburn, the next he was gone, massive heart attack at 42. He'd been the primary breadwinner with his contracting business, while I worked part-time as a school secretary. After the funeral, I discovered we were drowning in debt. Robert had taken out a second mortgage without telling me. His life insurance barely covered the funeral expenses. I remembered sitting Skylar down to explain that things would be different. It's just you and me now, sweetie, I told her. We're going to be okay, but we'll have to make some changes. Those changes meant selling our house and moving to a 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town. It meant taking a second job waitressing at night after my school job. It meant learning to fix things myself because we couldn't afford to call a repairman. In the photo album, I found a picture of Skylar's high school graduation. I was thinner then, exhausted from working 60-hour weeks. But I was smiling, proud. Despite everything, Skylar had thrived. Honor roll, debate team captain, scholarship to State University. What had happened to that grateful girl? The transformation had been gradual. At college, she'd met new friends, wealthy kids with summer homes and European vacations. She started coming home less, and when she did, she seemed embarrassed by our small apartment, by my worn furniture and discount store clothes. Then she met Travis Chambers during her senior year. Handsome, charming, from a family with old money and older names. When she brought him home for the first time, I'd made my specialty, homemade lasagna that Skylar had always loved. I still remember Travis's polite smile that didn't reach his eyes, the way he discreetly wiped his hands after touching anything in my apartment. It's cozy, he'd said, in a tone that made it clear he meant the opposite. After they left, Skylar called me. Mom, couldn't you have at least used the good dishes? And that tablecloth has a stain. The good dishes. I only had one set of dishes, the everyday Corelle that had survived years of use. The tablecloth had a faint tomato sauce stain from the last time Skylar had visited, when she'd knocked over her glass. After that, Skylar started suggesting we meet at restaurants instead of my apartment. Then it became clear she preferred that I not meet his family at all. I wasn't invited to their engagement party. For the rehearsal dinner, I was seated at a table far from the main party, with Travis's distant cousins who barely spoke to me. Still, I'd been so happy at their wedding. My beautiful daughter, marrying the man she loved. When they started looking for a house, I made the biggest decision of my life. I had 3 things of value. My retirement account, Robert's life insurance policy that I'd never touched, and a small inheritance from my aunt. Together, it was enough for a down payment on a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood. I planned to retire in a few years, maybe move to that little condo community where my friend Marge lived. Instead, I signed it all over to Skylar and Travis. This is your wedding present, I told them, handing over the cashier's check. I want you to have the security your father and I couldn't give you. Skylar had cried, hugging me tightly. For a moment I'd glimpsed my real daughter again. The one who knew what sacrifice meant. But within months I overheard her at their housewarming party telling a guest. We saved for years. It wasn't easy, but we made it happen. As if I had nothing to do with it. Travis knew the truth, of course. He'd been there when I handed over the check. But he never corrected her. In fact, he seemed to enjoy the fiction that they had achieved everything on their own. The doorbell pulled me from my memories. Michael stood there, briefcase in hand, concern evident on his face. "You look like you haven't slept," he said, following me to the kitchen. "I haven't." I poured him coffee while he spread documents across my table. "These are the original deed and mortgage papers for Skylar's house," he explained. "As you requested, you're listed as the owner, with Skylar and Travis as tenants with an option to buy." I nodded. It had been my one concession to caution. Michael's father had insisted I keep ownership of the house. "You're giving them a gift, not your future," he'd said. At the time, I thought he was being overly protective. "And you've been paying the property taxes all these years?" Michael asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yes, along with the homeowner's insurance and half their utilities." It had meant continuing to work well past when I should have retired, taking on consulting jobs at local schools to supplement my small pension. Michael sighed. "Janice, that's nearly $30,000 a year." I looked away. "She's my daughter. A daughter who told your grandson you're her former babysitter." His voice was gentle but firm. I flinched. "How did you know about that?" "You called me last night." "You don't remember." I shook my head. The hours after leaving Skylar's house were a blur. Michael placed his hand over mine. "It's time to think about yourself, Janice. What do you want to do about the house?" I stared at the documents before me. 38 years of motherhood. A lifetime of sacrifice. All erased in a single moment. "I want my daughter back," I whispered. "But if I can't have that, I at least want the truth." After Michael left, I spent hours sitting at my kitchen table, staring at those property documents. Each page told the story of my sacrifice and Skylar's betrayal. But there was something else nagging at me, something I couldn't quite place. I opened my laptop and logged into my online banking account. I rarely checked it. My pension and Social Security went in, my bills went out. Simple. But today I scrolled through months of statements looking for, I wasn't sure what. That's when I saw them. Regular withdrawals, each for $500, labeled Sky Support. I frowned. I had set up an automatic transfer years ago when Skylar was struggling after college, but I was certain I'd stopped it when she married Travis. I checked the authorization date. 3 years ago. But that couldn't be right. 3 years ago, Skylar was already married, already living in the house I'd bought them. They were doing well. Travis had made partner at his law firm, and Skylar had her job in marketing. With trembling fingers, I called the bank. 20 minutes and several security questions later, I had my answer. The automatic transfers had indeed been stopped after Skylar's wedding, but they'd been restarted 3 years ago, with a new authorization form bearing my signature. A signature I had no memory of providing. "Can you send me a copy of this form?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. An hour later, I was staring at a document I'd never seen before, with a signature that looked remarkably like mine. But it wasn't mine. My mind raced back to Skylar's birthday 3 years ago. I'd taken her to lunch at that little French bistro she loved. She'd seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone. At one point, she'd asked me to sign a birthday card for Travis's mother. "Just sign the blank card," she'd said, sliding a pen and card toward me. "I'll fill it out later." I remembered thinking it was odd, but I'd signed it anyway. Anything to make her happy on her birthday. It hadn't been a card. It had been a blank form, already stamped with the bank's logo at the top. My own daughter had tricked me into authorizing $500 a month, $6,000 a year, on top of everything else I was already paying for. The room spun around me. I lowered my head to the cool surface of the table, trying to breathe. For 3 years she'd been taking this money. That was $18,000. Money I could have used for my medication, for repairs to my aging car, for the dental work I'd been putting off. I called Michael again. "It's fraud," he said bluntly after I explained. "She could face criminal charges." "I don't want to press charges," I said quickly. "She's still my daughter. A daughter who's been stealing from you while living in a house you paid for." Michael reminded me gently. "Janice, at some point you have to protect yourself. But how do you protect yourself from your own child? How do you admit that the person you've loved more than life itself has been using you?" I couldn't face it, not yet. Instead, I did what I always did when I was upset. I cleaned. I scrubbed the kitchen floor on my hands and knees, washed windows, reorganized cabinets. Physical work to distract from emotional pain. As I was sorting through a drawer of old documents, I found a stack of greeting cards. Birthday cards, Mother's Day cards, Christmas cards, all from Skylar over the years. I opened one from when she was in college. Mom, I don't know where I'd be without you. You're my rock, my inspiration, my best friend. I hope someday I can give you even half of what you've given me. All my love, Skylar. When had that grateful girl turned into someone who would forge her mother's signature? Who would deny her own mother to maintain social appearances? The answer came to me suddenly with perfect clarity: Travis. Everything had changed after Travis. I recalled now the subtle ways he'd separated us. The comments about my clothes, my apartment, my job. The family gatherings I wasn't invited to. The way he'd raise an eyebrow when Skylar mentioned visiting me. My phone rang, startling me. Skylar's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. But some small, foolish part of me hoped she was calling to apologize, to explain that there had been a misunderstanding about what she'd told Charlie. Hello. Mom. Her voice was tight. Did you cancel the monthly transfer to my account? Not I'm sorry. Not let me explain. Just straight to the money. Yes, I said, surprised by my own calm. I did. Why would you do that without talking to me first? We were counting on that money for Charlie's summer camp. We were counting on that money. Money she'd obtained by fraud, that she hadn't even had the decency to ask for directly. Skylar, we need to talk. About the money, about what you told Charlie yesterday about. I don't have time for this, she cut in. Travis and I are hosting a dinner party tonight, and I have a million things to do. Can you just reinstate the transfers? We can talk about the other stuff later. The other stuff. As if denying my existence to my grandson was a minor issue to be discussed at her convenience. Something broke inside me. All these years I'd made excuses for her behavior. She's busy. She's under pressure. She's trying to fit in with Travis's family. But in this moment I saw the truth. My daughter had become someone I didn't recognize. No, I said quietly. No? What do you mean no? I mean no, Skylar. I won't be reinstating the transfers. In fact, I think it's time we had a serious conversation about several things, including the house. Silence on the other end. Then in a much more controlled voice. What about the house? Did you know that I'm still the legal owner? That I've been paying the property taxes? That you and Travis are technically my tenants? Another long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was ice cold. I see. So you're threatening me now? Using the house to control me because I said something that hurt your feelings. This isn't a threat, Skylar. It's a long overdue conversation about truth and consequences. I have to go, she said abruptly. Travis is calling me. The line went dead. I set down my phone, hands trembling not with sadness now but with resolve. For too long I'd allowed Skylar to take and take, believing that someday she would see my sacrifice, my love. But that day wasn't coming. It was time for a different approach. I didn't hear from Skylar for 3 days after our phone call. The silence wasn't unusual. She often disappeared when confronted with something unpleasant. But this time felt different. This time I wasn't anxiously waiting for her to reach out. Instead, I was reclaiming my life. The morning after our conversation, I called Dr. Sanders and finally scheduled the knee replacement surgery I'd been putting off for years. Without the financial drain of supporting Skylar's household, I could afford the copays and recovery costs. It's about time, Dr. Sanders said. You've been limping for so long, I thought it was your natural walk. Next, I called my friend Marge, who I'd been avoiding because I couldn't afford the cruise she'd been trying to get me to join. Janice Miller, I thought you'd fallen off the face of the earth, she exclaimed. Not quite, I laughed. But I've been preoccupied. With Skylar and that grandson of yours? Something like that. I took a deep breath. Is that cruise offer still open? Marge's delighted squeal made me hold the phone away from my ear. You're finally coming? What changed? Everything, I said simply. Everything's changing. After booking the cruise, a 10-day Caribbean adventure that would have been unthinkable just a week ago, I headed to the community center where I used to volunteer before Skylar's demands took over my free time. Eleanor, the program director, greeted me with a warm hug. Janice, what a wonderful surprise. I'd like to come back, I said. If you'll have me. Have you? Honey, your painting class was the most popular program we've ever had. The seniors still ask about you. Just like that, I was reinstated as the Tuesday and Thursday afternoon art instructor. As I left the center with a list of supplies to purchase, I felt lighter than I had in years. I was Janice Miller again, not just Skylar's mother, not just Charlie's unacknowledged grandmother, but a woman with her own interests, her own life. The next day, Michael came by with more paperwork. I've drawn up a formal lease agreement, he explained, spreading documents on my table. It establishes that Skylar and Travis have been living in your property, acknowledges the payments you've made, and offers them 3 options going forward. I reviewed the options. They could buy the house from me at current market value. They could begin paying me rent that reflected the property's worth, or they could move out within 90 days. Is this really necessary? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Michael's expression was kind but firm. Janice, they've been taking advantage of you for years. The money transfers alone constitute fraud. This is me being gentle. I signed the papers. Do you want me to deliver these? He asked. I shook my head. No. This is between me and my daughter. Later that afternoon, I drove to Skylar's house, my house legally speaking, and found her in the front yard, supervising as Charlie rode his bike along the sidewalk. She stiffened when she saw me. Mom, she said, the words sounding foreign on her lips. This isn't a good time. It never is, I replied calmly, my gaze fixed on Charlie. Hello, sweetheart. Charlie looked up, confusion crossing his features. Hi, babysitter lady. The pain was still there, sharp and immediate, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I smiled. My name is Janice. I brought you something. I held out a small paper bag. He approached cautiously, looking to his mother for permission. Skylar gave a tight nod. Inside the bag was a jar of homemade Play-Doh in his favorite color, blue. We used to make this together, I said softly. Do you remember? He frowned in concentration. Then his eyes widened. The squishy stuff. That smells good. That's right. I beamed. Charlie, go play in the backyard, Skylar interrupted. Mom and I need to talk. Mom. So I was her mother again when Charlie wasn't listening. After he disappeared around the side of the house, Skylar turned to me, arms crossed. What are you doing here? I handed her the envelope Michael had prepared. We need to discuss the house. She glanced at the envelope but didn't take it. What about it? I think you should read the documents first. Reluctantly, she took the envelope and opened it. I watched as she scanned the pages, her expression shifting from annoyance to disbelief to anger. You're evicting us? She hissed, keeping her voice low so Charlie wouldn't hear. I'm giving you options, I corrected. You can buy the house from me, at a fair price which is still less than market value. You can start paying rent. Or you can find another place to live. This is our home. It's my house, I said quietly. A house I bought for you as a gift. A house I've been paying taxes and insurance on for years, while you pretended it was something you achieved on your own. We can't afford to buy it outright, and you know it. Travis made partner 3 years ago. You've been renovating the kitchen and taking luxury vacations. I think you can afford more than you're admitting. Her face flushed. So this is punishment? Because I told Charlie you were my babysitter. No, Skylar. This is a consequence. There's a difference. She shoved the papers back into the envelope. I need to discuss this with Travis. Of course. You have 30 days to decide which option you're choosing. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Skylar? I've canceled all the automatic payments I've been making on your behalf. The utilities, the lawn service, the pool maintenance. You might want to set those up under your own accounts. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she seemed at a loss for words. As I walked to my car, Charlie came racing back around the house. Are you leaving? He called out. I knelt down, ignoring the protest from my bad knee. I am, but I'll be back. Will you bring more Play-Doh? If you'd like. He nodded enthusiastically. Mommy said you took care of her when she was little like me. I glanced at Skylar, who was watching us with an unreadable expression. Yes, I said carefully. I've taken care of your mommy her whole life. Were you a good babysitter? I smiled, feeling the weight of all those years, the sleepless nights, the endless work, the boundless love. I tried to be the very best. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Skylar in my rearview mirror. She was still standing in the yard, the envelope clutched in her hand, watching me go. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one being left behind. That evening, I sat on my small balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset. My phone beeped with a text from Marge about our upcoming cruise. I was reading it when another message came through, this one from Skylar. We need to talk. Can you come for dinner tomorrow? Just us, no Travis. 7 p.m. I considered the invitation. Part of me wanted to refuse, to make her come to me for once. But another part recognized that this might be an opportunity, perhaps the last one, to heal what had been broken. I typed back a simple response. I'll be there. Whatever happened next, I would face it as the woman I'd rediscovered, Janice Miller, not just a mother, not just a grandmother, but a person in my own right. And that made all the difference. I arrived at Skylar's house, my house, precisely at 7 p.m. the next evening. I dressed carefully in my best slacks and a blue blouse that Marge always said brought out my eyes. I'd even splurged on a professional haircut that morning, something I hadn't done in years. If this was to be a reckoning, I would face it as my best self. Skylar opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes widened slightly as she took in my appearance. You look nice, she said, sounding surprised. Thank you. I stepped inside, noticing the quiet. Where's Charlie? At a sleepover with his friend from down the street. She led me to the dining room, where the table was set for two with the fine china they used for special occasions. A bottle of wine was already open. Travis? I asked, glancing around. Working late. She gestured for me to sit. I thought it would be better if it was just us. I nodded, taking the offered chair. The tension between us was palpable as she served a pasta dish that smelled divine but that I could barely taste as we ate in strained silence. Finally, after pouring herself a second glass of wine, Skylar spoke. I talked to Travis about the house. And I kept my voice neutral. He was surprised. He thought his parents had helped with the down payment. She stared into her wine glass. I never corrected him. I see. I set down my fork. So you lied to your husband too? She flinched. I didn't lie. I just didn't specify where the money came from. And what did Travis say when you told him the truth? Skylar's gaze dropped to the table. He's upset. About all of it. The house, the monthly transfers. She trailed off. Did he know about those? She shook her head. I told him they were bonuses from work. The depth of her deception stunned me. All these years, I'd blamed Travis's influence for the changes in Skylar, never considering that she might be the architect of her own moral compromises. Why Skylar? I asked softly. Why all the lies? She took a large swallow of wine. You wouldn't understand. Try me. She sighed heavily. When I met Travis, I saw a chance at a different life. His family has connections, prestige. They summer in the Hamptons and winter in Aspen. They have a legacy. And you were ashamed of yours, I finished for her. Not ashamed exactly. But her eyes told a different story. I just wanted to fit in. When Travis's mother asked about my background, it was easier to say my parents had been professionals who died young than to explain about Dad's heart attack and your 2 jobs and our apartment on the wrong side of town. Each word was a small cut. So you erased me. I created a narrative that worked. She sounded like she was justifying a marketing campaign. And then I had to maintain it. By telling my grandson I was your babysitter? She had the grace to look ashamed. Charlie came home from school one day talking about family trees. His friend Jackson's grandmother drives a Mercedes and lives in a beach house. He asked why his grandmother lived in an apartment and drove an old car. Travis's mother overheard and started asking questions. So you told him I wasn't his grandmother at all. The pain was still fresh. It seemed simpler at the time. Simpler. As if my existence was a complication to be managed. Before I could respond, the front door opened and closed. Moments later, Charlie appeared in the dining room doorway, backpack in hand. Mommy! Jackson's mom brought me home because he got sick and... He stopped when he saw me. Oh, "Hi, Miss Janice." "Hello, Charlie," I said warmly, though my heart ached at the formal address. Skylar stood quickly. "Charlie, I thought you were staying at Jackson's tonight." He threw up on his Lego Star Destroyer, so his mom said I should come home. Charlie made a face. It was gross. Despite everything, I had to suppress a smile. 6-year-old boys hadn't changed since Skylar was young. "Go upstairs and get ready for bed," Skylar instructed. "I'll be up in a minute." "But I'm not tired," Charlie protested, even as he yawned. His gaze landed on the dining table. "Can I have dessert first?" "There isn't any dessert tonight," Skylar began, but I interrupted. "Actually, I brought something." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small package wrapped in parchment paper. "Peanut butter cookies. If it's okay with your mom." Charlie looked at Skylar with pleading eyes. She hesitated, then nodded. "One cookie." Then straight upstairs. As Charlie eagerly unwrapped the package, his small fingers working at the twine I'd used, I saw his eyes light up. "These look like the special cookies," he exclaimed. Skylar froze. "What special cookies?" "The ones in the pictures," Charlie said through a mouthful of cookie. "The ones Grandma used to make." The word hung in the air between us. "Grandma? What pictures, Charlie?" I asked gently. "In Mommy's secret box. The one with all the old pictures." He looked at Skylar. "The ones where you're little, and you and Grandma are baking cookies that look just like these." Skylar's face had gone pale. "Charlie, I told you not to go through my things. I was looking for tape for my school project." He turned to me, his expression suddenly curious. "You look like the lady in the pictures. The one Mommy called Grandma." I couldn't breathe. I looked at Skylar, who seemed equally stunned. "Charlie," she said carefully, "what do you mean called Grandma?" He shrugged, reaching for another cookie before Skylar gently moved the package away. "In the picture where you're blowing out birthday candles, you wrote on the back, 'Me and Grandma making my birthday special.' But Grandma looks like Miss Janice." The room fell silent except for the sound of Charlie happily munching his cookie, oblivious to the earthquake he just caused. "Charlie," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "would you like to see more pictures of your mommy when she was your age?" His eyes widened. "You have pictures?" "Lots of them. At my apartment." "Can I see them?" "Please, Mommy." He turned to Skylar, bouncing on his toes. Skylar looked at me, then at her son, torn between maintaining her fiction and the innocent excitement on her child's face. Something shifted in her expression. A crack in the carefully constructed facade she'd built. "Charlie," she said slowly, "there's something I need to tell you about Miss Janice." I held my breath, not daring to hope. She wasn't really my babysitter." Skylar swallowed hard. "She's my mother." "Your grandmother." Charlie's mouth fell open. "For real? Like for real, for real?" Skylar nodded, not meeting my eyes. "For real. But why did you say she was your babysitter?" His small brow furrowed in confusion. The question hung in the air, impossible to answer in a way a 6-year-old could understand. How do you explain adult shame to a child? Surprisingly, it was Skylar who broke the silence. "Because Mommy made a mistake," she said softly. "A big one." Charlie's innocent revelation changed everything. After Skylar admitted I was her mother, Charlie had 1,000 questions. Why hadn't he known his grandmother before? Did I have toys at my house? Could he come visit? "Of course you can visit," I told him, my heart so full it felt like it might burst. "Anytime you want." "Even tomorrow," he pressed. Skylar, still visibly shaken, managed a small nod. "If Grandma is free, yes." "Grandma." The word sounded like music. After Charlie went upstairs to get ready for bed, Skylar and I sat in strained silence. Finally she spoke. "I kept those photos in a box in my closet," she said softly. "Sometimes when Travis wasn't home, I'd look at them." I didn't know what to say. The revelation that Skylar had secretly preserved our history, even as she publicly denied it, left me confused. "Why, Skylar? If you cared enough to keep the photos, why did you?" "I don't know," she interrupted, her voice cracking. "It all started so small. One little lie to Travis's mother about my background, then another to his colleagues. Then suddenly I was trapped in this story I'd created, and I couldn't find a way out without admitting I'd been lying for years. It wasn't an excuse, but at least it was an explanation. And in her eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen in a very long time: remorse. "I need to check on Charlie," she said, standing. Will you wait?" I nodded. While she was upstairs, I wandered into the living room, looking at the carefully arranged family photos on the mantel. Skylar and Travis on their wedding day. Charlie as a newborn. Family portraits at the beach, in a studio in front of a Christmas tree. Not a single photo of me. Yet upstairs, hidden away, were the real memories. The truth she couldn't quite bring herself to erase. "He wants you to tuck him in." I turned to find Skylar in the doorway, her expression uncertain. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded. "He says grandmas are the best at bedtime stories." I followed her upstairs to Charlie's room, where he was already in bed, clutching a well-loved stuffed elephant. "Will you tell me a story, Grandma?" he asked, the title still new but fitting so perfectly. I sat on the edge of his bed. "What kind of story would you like?" "One about Mommy when she was little like me." I smiled, glancing at Skylar, who lingered in the doorway. "Well, when your mommy was about your age, she had a pet goldfish named Captain Sparkles." By the time I finished the story of how Skylar had once tried to give Captain Sparkles a swimming lesson in the bathtub, with predictably disastrous results, Charlie was giggling and Skylar was half smiling at the memory. "One more," Charlie pleaded. "Tomorrow," I promised, tucking the blanket around him. "You need your sleep, and I'll be back tomorrow." He yawned widely. "Promise. Promise." As we left his room, closing the door softly behind us, Skylar's eyes were damp. "He already loves you." "He's always loved me," I corrected gently. "He just didn't know who I was." Back downstairs, Skylar poured us both fresh cups of coffee. We sat at the kitchen island, the formality of the dining room abandoned. "What happens now?" she asked. "With the house, with everything?" I took a deep breath. "That depends on you, Skylar. I can't buy the house outright." "Not yet. But Travis and I discussed it, and we can start paying rent while we save for a down payment." She hesitated. "If you'll let us." "I think that could work." I paused. "What about Travis? How does he feel about all this?" She looked down at her coffee. "He's angry. Not about the money or the house, but about the lies. He said he married me. Not some fictional character I created." Her voice caught. "He's staying at his brother's for a few days. He needs time to think." I reached across the counter and took her hand. "I'm sorry, Skylar." "Don't be. It's my fault. All of it." She squeezed my hand. "I was so focused on becoming someone else that I lost myself. And I almost lost you." The next morning, Michael arrived at my apartment with the final paperwork. A proper lease agreement for Skylar and Travis, along with a payment schedule that would allow them to eventually purchase the house. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "You're still letting them off easy." "I'm not doing it for them," I explained. "I'm doing it for Charlie. And for me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in a bitter legal battle with my daughter." He nodded, understanding. "And the bank transfers? The fraud?" "We've agreed that Skylar will repay that money over time," I said firmly. "With interest." Michael smiled. "You've changed, Janice. A month ago, you would have just forgiven everything. Had I changed? Perhaps. Or perhaps I'd simply remembered who I was beneath all the sacrifice and silent suffering. A woman with boundaries, with self-respect." The doorbell rang. When I opened it, Charlie bounded in, followed by Skylar. "Grandma, we brought breakfast. Mom made cinnamon rolls, but she burned them a little, so we got donuts instead." Skylar rolled her eyes good-naturedly. "Thanks for the full report, buddy." Michael gathered his paperwork. "I'll leave you to your family breakfast. The lease agreement is on the table when you're ready to sign, Skylar." After he left, the three of us settled around my small kitchen table with donuts and coffee. Milk for Charlie. "So," Skylar said, sliding a manila envelope toward me, "I've been thinking about what you said, about truth and consequences." I opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of photographs, the ones from her secret box. Pictures of us throughout the years. Birthdays, holidays, ordinary moments made special by love. "I thought maybe we could put some of these up," she said hesitantly. At the house. If that's okay. It was more than okay. It was the beginning of healing. 2 months later, I stood on the deck of a cruise ship, watching the sunset over the Caribbean. Marge was beside me, both of us sipping fruity cocktails with little umbrellas. "You look happy," she observed. "Really happy." "I am." And it was true. My knee surgery was scheduled for after the cruise. I was teaching art classes twice a week. Charlie spent every Saturday with me, and sometimes weekday evenings when Skylar needed a babysitter, a real one this time. Things weren't perfect. Skylar and I were rebuilding slowly, each of us learning to be honest about our expectations and needs. Travis had moved back home, but I could tell he was still processing his wife's deceptions. Some wounds take time to heal, but there had been a shift, a fundamental rebalancing of power and truth. I was no longer just the giver, the sacrificer. I was Janice Miller, a woman with her own life, her own value. My phone pinged with a text message. It was from Skylar with a photo attached. Charlie at his school art show, proudly standing next to a painting of a cruise ship. The caption read, "Charlie's masterpiece. He says Grandma inspired him." Marge peered over at my phone. "Adorable. You must be proud." I smiled, feeling the warmth of both the sunset and the knowledge that, after all these years, I had finally found the right balance. Giving love without giving myself away. "What are you thinking about?" Marge asked. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. "I'm thinking that some lessons take a lifetime to learn," I said. "But it's never too late to teach them, or to learn them. The most important one being that love, real love, never requires you to make yourself invisible. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your child is the truth of who you are. Even when that truth comes with a long overdue bill for the house they've been living in. Grandma. Not babysitter. Not just a checkbook. Not a shadow to be hidden away. Grandma. The name I'd earned through years of love and sacrifice. The name I'd finally claimed, not with anger or resentment, but with the quiet dignity of a woman who knew her own worth. And that was the most liberating truth of all.